My mom accused me of hitting my brother, but 2 years later, his stealing finally exposed his lies, and my dad confessed he knew I was innocent, and my mother's collapse made news. I was 16 when it happened. My brother Matthew was 14, and we'd never been close, but I never thought he'd destroy me like that. We were arguing over something stupid. I think he'd used my headphones without asking again. I was in the kitchen getting water when I heard a loud crash upstairs. I ran up to find him in his room, his gaming monitor shattered on the floor. He was already crying, holding his shoulder like he'd been hurt. Before I could even ask what happened, he screamed that I'd pushed him and thrown it. Mom came running. She didn't ask questions. She looked at the broken monitor, looked at Matthew's red face, and then looked at me like I was a stranger. Within an hour, she'd called the cops. I tried explaining that I was downstairs, that I never touched him, but she just kept shaking her head. "You need help," she said. "This anger isn't normal." The cops came, took statements, and left. No charges, but the damage was done. 2 days later, Mom told me I was going to a youth recovery facility. She called it a program for troubled teens. I called it punishment for something I didn't do. Dad just stood there, silent as always, car keys in hand. I spent 6 months at that place. Group therapy, anger management classes, daily check-ins with counselors who kept asking me to acknowledge what I'd done wrong. I never did, because I hadn't done anything. But after a while, I learned that silence was easier than fighting. They said I'd made progress. Really, I'd just given up trying to convince people who'd already decided who I was. When I finally came home, everything had changed. My room had been converted into a guest, space-fresh paint, new furniture, like I'd never existed there. My clothes, my books, my tools, all packed into boxes and stacked in the garage. Matthew, they had a brand new gaming setup in the living room, LED lights and all. Mom hugged me at the door like we were strangers being polite. "Welcome home," she said, smiling that tight smile she used for church people. I didn't unpack. I got a job at Rick's auto shop 2 days later. Rick was this gruff guy in his 40 seconds who didn't ask questions. He just showed me how to change brake pads and told me to show up on time. I did, every single day. At home, I kept my head down. Matthew played the perfect son, getting good grades, helping with dinner, acting like nothing had ever happened. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me with this little smirk, like he was waiting for me to snap. I never gave him the satisfaction. I saved every paycheck, opened a bank account Mom didn't know about, started sleeping on a cot in Rick's storage room when things got too tense at home. Mom thought I was working late. I let her think that. 2 years went by like that. I turned 18, got my own apartment above a bakery across town. Rick gave me more responsibility at the shop, let me handle my own repairs. Life was quiet, simple. I didn't talk to my family unless I had to. Then one Tuesday, I was under a car when Rick called me out front. "You need to see this," he said, holding up his phone. There was a local news article pulled up. Small story, back page stuff. Matthew had been caught stealing money from a convenience store. Security footage, police report, the whole thing. Mom had shown up at the station, apparently, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding, that her son was a good kid. The article mentioned she'd tried to blame his behavior on family trauma. I didn't react, just went back to work. But a week later, Dad showed up at the shop. It was closing time, almost dark outside. He didn't come in, just sat in his car in the parking lot with the engine running. I walked over. He rolled down the window halfway, wouldn't look at me. "I need to tell you something," he said, a voice barely above a whisper. "That night with the monitor, I saw Matthew break it himself. He did it on purpose, then blamed you. I knew you didn't touch him." My hands went cold. "You knew. I thought if I said something, it would tear the family apart," he continued. "Your mother was so sure, and Matthew was scared, and I thought staying quiet would keep the peace." I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and started recording. "Say it again," I said. He finally looked up at me, eyes red. "I saw Matthew break that monitor. You didn't do anything. I'm sorry." I stopped the recording and put my phone in my pocket. "I don't need your guilt," I said. Then I walked back into the shop and locked the door behind me.